This time I'd like to call the regular meeting of Anderson County Council of August 16th to order. I want to welcome everyone here. This time I'd like to ask Ken Waters, Councilman Ken Waters, if he'd lead us in invocation, pledge allegiance.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time to allow us to be here tonight. Just ask that you would open our hearts and our minds to your will, and that we would present ourselves in a way that would please you. Pray this in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Sorry about that, excuse me. We'll be moving on. A couple of housekeeping notes. We don't have a minutes tonight to approve because we just met last week. That'll be coming to our next council meeting. We should have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Want to welcome, got some guests here tonight. Troop 356, Boy Scout Troop, I believe sponsored by the Whitefield Baptist Church. And welcome them here and glad to see them. And also, item number 6C has been removed from the agenda. That will not longer be on the agenda tonight. But this time, I asked Mr. Michael Pitts to call names of citizens who signed up for comments. Please state your first go around, state your name, district, and address the chair and keep comments on agenda items, please. Mr. Pitts.
Mr. Chairman, first up tonight is Jonathan Hill.
Thank you, members of council. I'm Jonathan Hill from District Number 4. I just want to speak for a brief minute on item number 8A. Taxpayers want lean, efficient government. I'm going to use a very small example from the Sheriff's Department's capital requests to make a much bigger point. One of the capital items requested is a Nikon D300S Pro digital camera. Comes with a price tag of $3,000. As the sheriff will tell you, the camera itself is half the cost. The rest of the cost is split between a flash and a lens. If you're in the photography business, getting the best of the best as far as digital cameras are concerned and equipment, very understandable if that's where you make your living. In government, I'm not sure it's justified, and this is why. I do make a living in technology, so I consider myself moderately well-versed on the ins and outs of digital SLRs. Something that I learned while shopping for a camera within the last year is that the focus and image stabilizer on a Sony digital camera are in the camera body, unlike Nikon, which puts those components in the lens. The result is that Sony cameras and lenses are more efficient and far cheaper to own. As proof, I have a quote with me from B&H Photo and Video, the same source that the sheriff is going to for his equipment. And with your permission, I'd like to give the council members each a copy of this. Mr.
Burns, grab him.
If you would mind. Thank you, sir. What we have here is a quote on a Sony Alpha 35 with a flash and a 200 millimeter zoom lens, which in my 30 minutes of research I felt like was a pretty close match. This whole setup comes with a price tag of $1,049.97. That's about $2,000 worth in savings to the taxpayers. Now, this is a small amount of money compared to the overall budget of Anderson County, but this is why all this matters. Conservatives scrape, save, and they very occasionally splurge. You can brag about how great a conservative you are, but it's the little things behind the scenes when nobody's looking that really tell the real story about who you are and how you conduct yourself. We need men and women of character who understand that when you tax a person, you're not taking their money, you're taking their blood, their sweat, and their tears. Members of council, as a taxpayer of Anderson County, I ask that you grant the sheriff $1,049.97 for his
That's
camera
time,
budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Dave
Hill.
Brissy?
My name is Renee Brissy, and I live in District 1, and I am addressing the 5A, B, C, and D. I want to thank each of you, first of all, for voting in the plan that Mr. Crowder presented that was put together by him and many of the other people who work in the county. And I feel like this plan is going to be a viable plan for the zoning of the east-west connector. It will give office commercial area, and it will help Concord Road remain the same. And on behalf of all the people who signed the petitions, which were over 1,000 people that live in that area, that's what we wanted, and I certainly appreciate you supporting us as the people who live there, and I stress the people who live there. Thank you very much.
Mark Powell, District 7. East-West Connector. I think it's interesting that I enjoy the blogosphere, as I like to call it. And I think it's interesting that certain people within the blogosphere say that we, Anderson County, wanted that road. We, Anderson County, spoke loudly in the referendum when you asked for 1 cent sales tax referendum several years back to pay for that. I think it was 70-something% said, piss off. We do not want the east-west connector. Developers, I mean, I have nothing against developers. I'd love to be one myself someday. If they had wanted massive zoning, massive changes so they can make the optimum money off their property, they could have bought and built a private highway, kind of like they did the toll road up in Greenville. Not that it should have been a toll road, but if they were that impressed with the property, they could have purchased it and done their own development instead of having to use our tax dollars. And I say that because the stimulus money was given to East-West Connector. And people on the blogosphere who claim to be in the know say that we were going to give the 1 penny sales tax to like refund somebody something weird, I don't know. But had that money not been given for East-West Connector, our roads, which are decrepit, falling apart, the shoddiest roads that I've traveled in the 4 states that I traveled regularly on my last job, with that 14, 17 million, it started at one number and went higher and higher, to appease the people wanting a bicycle lane or something, or flowers and trees. This road was built with tax dollars. I think leaving the people alone that live there is the best thing. I do appreciate y'all doing what you are. I wish you used your clout with the VA department. If the Veterans Department wants a new hospital, it would be great for us to have one. But why do you need to pick some of the most expensive dirt in Anderson County to build something that most people who go there get to go there for free or very reduced rates? You know, if the veterans want a place, please ask them to be frugal and not buy the most expensive property to put it on. You know, and I'd also like to think that we as society, if we own something of value and something that is good to our veterans, that could be given a reduced price, a greatly reduced price. I think it would be an honorable thing to do if that is the location of choice. I think it'd be an honorable thing for the person to own it, to donate it to the Veterans Association instead of milk me, you, and the rest of us in this room, in this county, in this state, in this world, as far as the United States of America, of our tax dollars to build something at one of the most expensive places that our tax dollars have created. Bad check thing, oh gosh. If it works out kind of the way they say it's going to work out, it'd be kind of good. One more level of bureaucracy, one more entity that is created. Checks are going away. I mean, how many of you have written more than 2 checks in the last month? Debit cards and credit cards, preferably debit cards, and that way it's money people have instead of money people are borrowing.
That's time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts.
Lily Hall.
My name is Lily Hall, and I live in County Council District 1. And I'd like to thank you for voting last time for the overlay district as regards the east-west connector. And I would like to commend you for rejecting the rezoning to office commercial of some 117 acres from Greenville Street, extending all the way to Concord Road, the east-west connector, and Sam McGee Road. There is no compelling reason to rezone at this time. Mr. Crowder proposed a compromise, which does include zoning some 3 acres as light industrial, which we accepted without a whimper. That compromise involved rezoning to office commercial certain properties bordering onto Greenville Street, but not extending all the way back into our residential area on Concord Road. There still is no compelling reason for any rezoning, but should you choose to do that, I hope that you will continue to support the Crowder compromise amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. Again, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the property off the east-west connector that's behind Grady's and between Grady's and the Modern Cleaner. I spoke a little bit about it last meeting. It is in the county. It is not zoned currently. Tonight is the second reading for zoning that property to be commercial. I think it's C1 is what's proposed. There's a lot of implications. We've been working with a client developing that land, proposing a building on it. I have spoken to Mr. Bill West this week as well as one of the council members concerning that. Their recommendation to me was to go ahead and let it be zoned and then come back and ask for a variance in the near future once the property is zoned. Again, I just wanted to reiterate, it'd be preferable for us that it's not zoned at this time. Just wanted to put that on the record.
Mr. Zog, excuse me, it has just brought my attention, it's in our ordinances, you're representing a group of people, right?
Yes, sir.
Who are the group of people you're representing?
The Phillips.
Okay. That's in our ordinance, the reason I asked that, we have to come
Sorry.
from
Representing Scott Phillips.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
John Phillips, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, EDIS Partnership Economic Development Information System, meeting report. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of our featured help from a Appalachian Council of Governments. We have invested in the economic development information systems. I remember back in the late 70s when I first was beginning to do work with commercial real estate, I first discovered the COG, and they were just an incredible clearinghouse for demographic information. I'm going to ask Ms. Linda to copy 2 items that they gave to us recently at a meeting over there, which will be very helpful when you have all manner of business or industrial prospects or anyone looking even to move to our county. There is a school district profile for 2010, everything from enrollment, attendance rate, end of course passage rate, on-time graduation, dropout, pass test reading, pass test math, pass test science, pass test social studies, pass test writing, dollars per student, student-teacher ratio, average teacher pay for each district in Abbeville, Anderson, Greenville, Greenwood, Lawrence, Oconee, Pickens, Spartanburg, and Union counties. It's a treasure trove of information. Another item that they gave to us that is part of this economic development information system, and any citizen can go and get most any of this information anytime, either from their internet access or going over there personally or calling. This one is a census population by age group, and it gives every age group from under 5 all the way up in increments to age 85, and then the median age, and it's for each county, each of the 10 counties in the Appalachian Council of Governments area, and it has the mean for the region and also for upstate and South Carolina. The EDIS information system, according to Mr. Burris Nelson, who's our Director for Economic Development, this is a tool that his staff uses almost daily. It's called Infomentum. And he states in a recent letter to us that it's a critically important tool. It's the digital mapping system provided through the County Contract of Services Agreement with the Appalachian Council of Governments. And we as tenants of the contract agreement agree to the cost for the use of the mapping system, and it's already included in the total that we pay annually. It is the single most important tool. It's critical for every recruiting effort, from gathering and cataloging demographic information to creating site and infrastructure maps. He further states that it's our constant resource. It was played a huge part in recruiting first quality tissue. He also states that our staff uses this for industrial prospects, but we also provide demographic reports for local commercial businesses and nonprofits, and went on to say that occasionally we receive requests from local churches seeking demographic reports on the communities they serve. Now you can also request a radius report, everything from driving time to all the demographics within a certain radius, and they'll custom make the information. Additional information includes labor sectors by NAICS or SCIC codes, wage data, and much more. So our economic development staff uses this. A lot of the businesses have discovered it. In phase 1, the goal was to establish a public website customized for each upstate county to market their assets. The objective was to adapt the originally scaled property navigator for county-specific use. The activities have included, and all of these that I'll give you the list have already been completed. They're done. One was to reconfigure the search engine to select and county data instead of regional data, redesign unique site graphics for each county, refine the code for the map function programming, and this includes the new ArcGIS 10 conversion, which is pending. The other tools that are offered to public visitors to this site are fully searchable databases of industrial properties, detailed maps of each property, aerial and topographic images, scalable and rotating building footprints, demographic report by distance or drive time centered on the property location, drive time using the business analyst online, a demographic report with original Claritas data, demographic report with new BAO, which is the business analyst online, and restrict to predefined origin points. That is now pending. You can now print out basic maps, and the ability to save your project portfolio is deferred right now, but you'll soon have that available. Phase 2, the design and implement a separate password-protected site to provide more detailed research and data management tools for researchers and planners. The activities which have been completed as of now are the demographic reports from any center location, and currently the staff is working on the real-time edits to the properties database, and pending are the small business development tools and a wider array of GIS functions. and there will be some more custom features that will be provided. I just wanted to give y'all a report. In your agenda package is the backup and the recent minutes, and just want to make sure our public knows that this is a very valuable service, that you can access most of all of this from your own home computer, and it's a valuable tool for our economic development. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Moving on, item number 5, ordinance of second reading. Number 2011-021, ordinance adopting the East-West Connector Overlay District Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Matters related thereto. We have a motion. Motion, Mr. Moore. Have a second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion, Mr. Crowder?
All right.
Take your microphone, Mr. Crowder.
My amendment to this item is as follows. I move to amend the plan so that the zoning recommendations contained in the plan are consistent with the ordinance number 2011-023 as passed on the first reading at the last meeting. What that basically says is, instead of the plan containing the rezoning that was in the original document, that would be X'd out. It would now include the recommendations that were approved at the last meeting in the ordinance 023.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Moore. Discussion?
Well, yeah. Nobody else will. I don't understand. And I think there are others up here that don't understand either.
This is I'll try to clarify it.
Thank you.
Having trouble with this is going back and reflecting the East-West Connector Overlay Comprehensive Plan to what we adopted at last council meeting, because that was the Part C, and it's just going back and reflecting it to say the same, to make sure they both say the same thing. If it don't say the same thing.
We didn't realize that, or we didn't catch that at
No,
the
it
last
was
meeting?
the last meeting. This was voted on first. The other one was voted on 3 times. We'd have had to go back. So now's the proper time to make the changes on it.
What this basically does is,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't understand, because at the last meeting, we were given information about the East-West Connector, and we stood up and we talked about it, and we voted on.
Yes, ma'am.
So, would you please explain to me once more?
Ma'am.
What we voted on was not,
Ma'am, you remember when we got the C last time, and what the people out here in the audience is talking about, with the Crowder line, Crowder compromise? We voted on that?
I voted on the compromise.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that was in Part C,
Okay.
okay? To match, it needs to, C and A needs to say the same thing.
But it
Got to
did.
go back, no, it didn't, because A was first, and we just done the compromise. We had to do it like this in order. This is in the order of events to line things up to make them mash.
we approved the plan.
Mr. Pitts,
Yes, ma'am.
do you understand it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, well, may I come to you after the vote, please?
You sure can?
Explain it to me, please.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
And maybe some others up here need to come down too. Okay, thank you.
May I make a
More discussion, Mr. Crowder?
Mr. Chairman, basically, the original plan was approved first, just like you stated. Well, the original plan had this all as, not like it is now. And so we voted later on in the third item to amend it to where there would be one piece of property that would be office, that was about 14 acres, and one piece of property that was going to be light industrial. Then there were going to be 2 small pieces of property, 1 acre each, that were going to be C classification because they're already C class. So that was approved. So all this motion does is says, now go back and change the plan to reflect what we just approved, so that the plan will be in sync with the third item that we adopted. It's kind of like making sure A is equal to C, both documents. That's all we're doing.
Any more discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Allen?
Mr. Chair, yeah, just very quickly. So the plan that we'd be amending here would be the one that was originally done by the planning department. This is not the plan that, you know, when you went out last year and went and did the major zoning, you know, you had all the meetings all over the county. That's not the plan we're talking about. We're talking about the one you just did. Okay, I got you now. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? More discussion? All in favor of the amendment to the motion, show of hands. All opposed? All abstentions? So the motion passes. Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Moore, Mr. Crowder, Ms. Wilson in favor, Ms. Floyd abstains. Now back to the original motion. More discussion? All in favor of the original motion, show of hands. All opposed? All abstentions? So the motion carries. Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Moore, Mr. Crowder, Ms. Wilson in favor, Ms. Floyd abstains. Moving on to item number B, 2011-022, ordinance adopting the East-West Connector Corridor Overlay District regulations and matters related thereto. We have a motion. We have a motion, Mr. Moore, to move. We have a second. Second, Mr. Crowder. Any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Floyd?
Mr. Dunn, at the last meeting, it was brought to my attention that, well, I shall ask, at the last vote last week, did we vote for the Veterans Hospital to be considered for a placement out there, or did we not?
No.
Mr. Dunn?
We voted for the zoning that would
Mr.
allow.
Dunn?
I'm just trying to think, what I'm trying to say is, according where some people say the Veteran Hospital wants to locate, no, we didn't. It won't be included in this.
Okay, it wasn't
Thing.
included in anything that we voted on, right?
I mean, all we done was a thing, we didn't take no considerations to show, is my understanding, and I'll let other people speak themselves, not to show one way or the other, lean one way or the other where a developer might want to, where the veterans home might be wanting to go.
Okay, so at a later time, can that or will that be done? It
It can be, anytime, it could be asked, this document can be amended, any property owner's got a right to come forward and ask for it to be changed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right,
There's a
good.
procedure in place.
Good. I think that I talked with, I thank you, Mr. Dunn. You've answered the question.
Ma'am, but just where you know, this particular section here, what we're voting on now, is just the overlay regulations as far as signage, landscaping and stuff like that. This don't really pertain to zoning no property on B don't.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 5C, number 2011-023, ordinance amended, ordinance number 99004, Anderson County zone ordinance, adopted July 29 by me, Anderson County official zoning map, rezone 6 properties near Clemson Boulevard and 2 properties near Greenville Street. We have a motion moved from Mr. Moore. Second. Second, Mr. Crowder. Any discussion? Any discussion? And all in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 5D, ordinance amending chapter 38, ordinance pertaining to flood damage and prevention. Wes, Mr. Hunter, you have anything if you want to add to this? It's on third reading. There'll be a public hearing, and this will be coming forward.
This will be going to Planning and Public Works Committee on what I think is going to be the 26th, according to Mr. Hopkins today. And then we'll have a full presentation on it at the September meeting.
As we discussed, it's just something we need to do to get cleaned up for time's sake.
Right.
Timeline. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Do we have a motion to second?
Okay,
Wait,
so moved.
motion, Mr. Moore, second, Ms. Wilson.
Second.
Mr. West, I think Ms. Wilson's got some questions you might have to answer.
I did call earlier, and according to what I understand, that our floodplain administrator will be Ms. Hunter, is that correct, in the Planning and Zoning Department?
Excuse me?
Ms. Hunter be what, Ms. Wilson? I don't think quite
Is
understood.
it my understanding that Ms. Hunter will be the floodplain administrator? Is that correct?
The development standards manager is the floodplain administrator, has been designated to be the one, and will remain so.
Okay, and then I was reading through this, on page, I'm not sure it even gives the pages, but under number 10, it says denial of flood insurance under the NFIP. It refers to the local administrator shall notify the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to initiate a Section 1316 of the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968 action against the structure upon the finding that the violator refuses to bring the violation into compliance with the ordinance. Could we get a copy of that, the Section 1316?
Oh, certainly, we can provide that to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Floyd?
Mr. West, before the meeting of the Planning Commission on the 26th, would you please make sure that each member of that board gets a copy of this as well?
I think it was in your packet. And
if you could just look at it again and
we'll make sure, yeah.
we have everything we're going to need for that meeting.
And of this
even though-
additional item. Yeah.
Even though that we voted on it twice already.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Allen?
if I could, I'd like to offer an amendment to this. If you look at 5D here, there are actually 6 areas we're looking at. So I'd like to offer an amendment at this time to amend the ordinance in order to provide that Chapter 38, Article 4 of the code dealing with flood damage and prevention be deleted in its entirety and replaced with the 6 divisions being proposed. And that'll clean the whole thing up so that we don't have any straggly pieces hanging out there.
Say that again, please.
Okay? All right, okay.
Mr. Allen, could I ask you if you would, if it wouldn't be offensive to you, to refrain from that to third reading until we have something and the committee goes through this and we can do a little studying and what's called, would that be appropriate to do a team, please?
If that would work out better, sure. Yeah, I'll withdraw that then. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Ms. Wilson?
You know, there's no question that we need some kind of program to deal with flood-prone areas. I know there've been serious issues. All you have to do is look at what happened at Katrina. That's an extreme of it. There was an issue in Macon, Georgia years ago. People died there too. It was a 500-year plain. What does concern me is that we have a chance to look at the maps in our own district so we can be familiar with them. There was a lady that came to speak with us at Wren School, and looking at what she presented to us that night, it would seem that the elevation and so forth on her lot would have made her not really subject to this unless she was planning to do some big building that would have a lot of impervious surface.
That's not exactly correct. It was one what you seen that night, but me and Mr. Waters both done some thing on that and the staff and had there was a other side on it and finally got it, I think, understood.
So she was going to build a large project or something that would impact the runoff heavily into the stream.
The line, as she noted, had been changed. What was talking about, this new thing is bring it up. And that's what the difficulty was with her understanding when she was going back to that.
My understanding, she was just going to put a mobile home out.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly, and you're exactly right. But anytime it's changed, you change on something other, it's the new, if she'd have done this, what she wanted to do, if she'd have done it, say, 60 days beforehand, it wouldn't be no problem, but the regulations had changed in that time being.
And this is part of what we're looking at tonight, and I read through it, and I think we really need to take time and review it very carefully, because we surely don't want building projects in flood-prone areas or contributing without some mitigation to flooding in certain areas. But I think we need to be very careful about how we implement this.
Yes, ma'am, I agree wholeheartedly. You ain't gotta go far to look what happened to Oconee County a few years ago by not doing nothing. Any more comments? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to ordinances, first reading, 6A, 2011-025, an ordinance approving a proposed amendment to the Plan Development District by New Springs Community Church, owner of 35 acres, New Spring Community Church, 2940 Concord Road. Proposed amendments to allow the expansion of a parking lot improvements. Mr. West.
This basically is an amendment to the plan development for the, what was originally known as the Lenoir PD. And the New Spring Church is, because of some issues that they're having with overlapping parking for services that are back up to each other on Sunday, has found that they actually need to go ahead and pave some of the additional parking that was originally going to be left open, and which does call for a major amendment of the PD, and the Planning Commission has recommended in favor of this, and the Citizens Advisory Committee has recommended in favor of this. I know Mr. Chip Fogelman, who represents New Spring, is here tonight and can perhaps answer any technical questions, but this is just, there will be a public hearing at the next meeting, and for what it's worth, there has been no opposition to date.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Moore, and second, Mr. Allen. Any discussion?
Mr.
West?
Mr. West, have we notified the community there that this?
All notifications were made, signs were posted.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. So we haven't heard nothing from the community so far?
We had a lot of curiosity, but when they found out what was going on, there was no objection.
No objection. Okay. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 6B, number 2011-026, ordinance to amend ordinance number 98-019 as previously amended. It's relating to the industrial business park of Anderson and Greenville counties, so as to enlarge the park. Mr. Burns, Mr. Pitts.
Mr. Chairman, this has been sent over to us from Greenville County. They have a new economic development project they're placing into the multi-county park that Greenville and Anderson have together, and to put property in, both councils have to pass an ordinance putting the property into the park. This is located in Greenville, and this is just a standard ordinance blessing that addition to the park.
We have a motion. Motion, Mr. Moore, move.
Second.
Second, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 7A resolutions, R 2011-020, resolution authorizing an agreement between Anderson County and the 10th Circuit Solicitor's Office in order to establish a worthless check unit and matters related thereto. Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. I am here tonight to ask that you approve an agreement between my office and the county to allow me to establish a worthless check unit. Mr. Pitts and Mr. Burns have that agreement, and basically, as you know, the worthless check unit allows me to recover restitution for victims of bad checks in Anderson County. It relieves the Sheriff's Office of that burden, so it is very beneficial to law enforcement. We have had it going up and running in Oconee County now for approximately 2 months, and it has been a huge success, and our numbers are increasing on a daily basis. And I am here to answer any questions that you may have. I think y'all are all aware of how the program works. And just to let you know that it has been very successful in Oconee. I can tell you in the first month, we collected approximately $5,800 in restitution for victims. And we turned over about $1,700 in restitution to Oconee, or in fees to Oconee County's general fund. Currently in Oconee County, we have approximately 120 defendants or bad check writers, and they represent about $47,000 in lost revenue to Oconee County citizens, businesses, and individuals, because we help either small businesses and individuals collect their restitution. Based on population, Anderson County does at least 2 times, if not 3 times, what Oconee County does. So it would be very, very beneficial, I feel, for Anderson County to approve this at this time. And I actually would like, if you don't mind, Sheriff Skipper is here. He has actually spoken to Sheriff Singleton in Oconee to let you know how law enforcement has reacted to this program. And also I have Mr. Glenn Thomason, who has been running Anderson Screen Printing here in Anderson for 30 years, and he contacted me, and I would like for him to speak on behalf of him and some of his friends as well that run small businesses, and how much they would like to see the worthless check unit come to Anderson County. So, Sheriff?
I know this has come up before, so I called Sheriff Singleton, and based on him and talking to Sheriff Metz in Lexington County, where this started originally with Solicitor Donnie Myers, obviously they have seen a big benefit to them in their community and with the Sheriff's Office. Singleton's comments is that they basically knew to them for a month or two, but it has shown a benefit to them in the warrant division, where they're not having to go out and look for these folks. I talked to my Lieutenant Clarkson. We gave him some information before when this came up. And just to give you a real quick process, you know, the process now is if you get a bad check as a merchant, then you then send that person a check or a letter, certified, we recommend certified, and give you 10 days to respond back as a business owner. Once that 10 days is up, then you, the merchant, go to the magistrate and apply for an affidavit for a warrant. For whatever reason, our whole system has gotten to the point where they don't let merchants and victims and sign warrants anymore. They let law enforcement do it. So we either have one of our resident deputies or some other officer go by these magistrates' office, whether it's downtown or whether it's one of the outlying, and sign that warrant. And up to that point, we have had no research into this person. And then that way we have an active warrant on our books that comes back to the office. We start looking. We send a letter to that person, and that person then either responds on our check day or they don't respond at all, and that's when we start hunting them down and looking for them. Sometimes those folks don't have a good address on their check, or they've moved and all this, so we have to start hunting from them. Here's the reality is that in that process, once we start looking for them, if that person then goes back to the merchant and says, oh, I realized that I got that letter the other day, here's the $50 for the check, and the merchant calls us to say that it has been taken care of. So then we have to do a recall on the warrant. We have to fill out paperwork, or the magistrate calls us and says there's a recall. We fill out the paperwork. By doing this process, those merchants, as I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in any part of this, just jump up, these merchants still send a 10-day letter, and because the bank has told them it's insufficient, and if those people respond back and pay their checks, which is what a lot of folks do, those good folks like everybody in this room say, oh, I thought I had $50 in the check, I wrote a $20 check, something else cash, and now I'm $10, $12. They go make it good. It's kind of these habitual folks that just do this all the time, over and over and over. So by doing that, the merchant still goes there. Then the process, if we go through the bad check, is that they start looking for them. They will try to run those folks down and get that collection before we issue the warrant. So that way it cuts us out on having to do those recalls, because we get the warrant kind of up front. I see that as a benefit. Lieutenant Clarkson says that what we will do then is to assign our folks in doing those check warrants that we get in all the time and put them on felony warrants and things like this. So that's kind of the process. I don't see the initial, and I heard some comments that people prefer to do their own. Well, they can still do that. They can call the person, they can send a letter, they can collect their own on the initial part. It's once they decide to get an arrest warrant, and we have to go out and hunt them. And believe me, some of these people hide from us. Now, that's hard to believe, but they do hide, and they move from place to place and write checks and things like this. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any other questions, or you want to.
Let Mr. Thompson speak.
And we would actually do all the work for the victims. We take care of everything from the beginning for them, so they don't have to waste their time or their money trying to collect bad checks. And I actually got a call this morning from a local businessman who said just last month he had $1,500 worth of bad checks last month at a business he has been running for approximately 20 years. So there are bad checks out there, and there's a lot we can do to help the hardworking citizens of Anderson County recoup their money at no cost. And if we can't get it, then we issue the warrants for arrest. Then all the sheriff has to do is go serve them, as he would obviously have to do that because my office can't serve the warrants. But we get them, so he would not even be involved until the warrant was issued, saving the victims all the work. So.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm here tonight to speak in favor of this, what I call a great work that's being instituted by our solicitor, this worthless check unit. I'm Glenn Thomason, and approximately 33 years ago, I started and still operate a business called Anderson Screen Print and Embroidery across from the old Anderson Fairgrounds on Williamston Road, which is now Anderson University Complex. And I've enjoyed being in business for 33 years. But one of the things that I've never enjoyed is going to the mailbox, opening a letter from my bank with a check written to our company and stamped, returned, non-sufficient funds, or account closed, or stop payment, which was written by a customer at time of purchase. This amount will be charged back to your account. The frustration comes into play because at the end you will have to make numerous calls to that person, beg them to come in to pick up the check, make it good, send a letter, wait 10 days, go to the magistrate's office, get a warrant, pay a fee, and try to start the process to start and collect the money that someone stole from you by taking your goods by means of a worthless check. With the worthless check unit, there's one form that we're presented with. It takes approximately 5 minutes to fill out. We attach the bag check to this and take it to the solicitor's office, which is a great joy in my position. Well, instead of using a weapon to take your money, they wrote a worthless check. In 2010, we had over $3,000 in worthless checks written to our company. We finally, over a period of time, collected all but $400. And the reason that I lost the $400, the individual owed us $600, and trying to help them, as a sad story was presented to me, I made a mistake and accepted partial payment of $200. And they promised to pay the rest if I would work with them, of which I agreed, but never received the rest because once you accept partial payment, they don't have to pay the rest, as I was not aware of this but later learned. Worthless checks are against the law. No one, regardless of age, condition, status, position, or misfortune, has a right to write a worthless check and take the goods of a service of a small business or individual. As a small business owner, I have spoken to numerous friends of mine who feel the same as I do and appreciate the effort our solicitor, Chrissy Adams, is doing to try to get you, the county council, to approve this worthless check unit. Myself and others were very disappointed it was voted down several weeks ago. It behooves us that it was not approved due to the fact it will cost the county nothing, but a proven fact it will pay for itself, put money into the county coffers. But most important, it will help the small business owners, myself, and others to regain our money or the person be prosecuted. I encourage you as members of the Anderson County Council to vote yes on this worthless check unit. Already there are 35 counties in the state who are currently operating the worthless check unit successfully and profitably. In order to help us small businesses, I hope you, by your vote of yes, will make Anderson County number 36. Let us send a message to the fraudulent check writer. You write a check in Anderson County, you'll be prosecuted. Also, myself and others that I've spoken with want to say thank you, Solicitor Adams, for taking the initiative to help small businesses and others in Anderson County. Also, we would like to say to you, as council members in advance, thank you for hearing this plea and doing the right thing by voting yes to approve the worthless check unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any council members? Ms. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spoke earlier with the sheriff, and he was going to have a PowerPoint presentation on the trends from the other counties. I have several questions.
What I'd said was there was a one originally in one of the workshops, and I was going to email it to Mr. Crowder, but I responded back to him on my email that I've got a new computer and it wasn't on there, so I don't have that anymore.
The other question was, I had referred a citizen to you last week, and he was telling me that suddenly he had to only have one day a week that he could go and, one day a month, I think, that he could go and get a warrant. And after I talked with him a little bit, it turns out that this person who wrote him the bad check for several $100s did the same thing to his father across the county at another similar business. Also to our former sheriff, a business he owns, and his family, and some others. And I just have a question. To me, I agree with Mr. Thomason. There's a difference between habitual theft in this instance and an oversight. It seems like those are criminals. They should be arrested. But when you said that this was the new a new measure that that required law enforcement to sign the warrants, when did that take effect, and who made that ruling?
We would sign the warrants as law enforcement. The sheriff would obviously have to serve the warrants if we even got to that stage.
Here's what you're referring to. I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
What you're referring to is there was a court administration letter come out years and years ago that what was happening is we were having victims come into magistrate's office, and this is back, this goes back, well, the law says that in order to get a warrant, a person, it doesn't have to be law enforcement, must submit an affidavit to a magistrate and swear to it upon the issuance of the warrant. So that means the law basically says any citizen can go in a magistrate and says, I'll use Rusty. I always like to use Rusty. Rusty Burns came out of my house and slapped me upside the head, and he assaulted me, and I want to get a warrant on him, and I swear that happened. And the judge would fill out the affidavit and issue the warrant. Well, we got to a point in our society where he would issue that warrant, we would go out and arrest Rusty, we would do a prelim, we'd come to the General Sessions Court, and then I, John Skipper, come in and say, Rusty, now we done made up, and I want to drop the charges and all this. So the court administration through our state has now kind of gone through the magistrate system to say that all warrants need to be signed by law enforcement. So what we actually in law enforcement now do is we'll come out, we interview me, John Skipper, as the victim. I have to take a statement from me. We go talk to Rusty. We go to the magistrate, and then our deputy walks in and says, I have statements from John Skipper. He's the victim. He says this happened, and we want to issue a warrant for Rusty Burns' arrest. So that's what I mean by signing those warrants. So that has been interpreted all warrants. So what that means is that every time there's a bad check warrant or somebody gets a bad check in their business, they do the 10-day letter, and then they go to the magistrate. They give the magistrate the information. Well, obviously it has happened. The bank says they got documentation from the bank that says it was insufficient funds. They give the information to the magistrate. The magistrate then does the affidavit, and one of my officers goes by there, and we have several that hit several of the outlying magistrates because they do papers for them, and they sign that affidavit, so then now their warrant is official. What we're saying here is because of the agreement and the law allows is that once the process of taking the checks in, they try to get that reimbursement, and if we need to get a warrant, then her investigator, which is a Class 1 officer as I understand it, then he would just go across to the magistrate's office and take those affidavits and issue those warrants, sign them instead of one of my officers doing it. He is an officer. He is an officer. Then the warrant comes to me as the sheriff to go out and serve. But the process of this is to hopefully get those things settled before the warrant is ever issued, to, one, get the merchant back their money and not have to sign that warrant. Those folks, just like you say, and here's the issue with bad check warrants, because Mr., I don't want to say his name, the gentleman you called me about, he had a problem with one check. And somebody goes down to another store and does another check. Each one of those are individual cases. It's not a lump sum that's a first and second and third offense and all this, because they're all different victims and different instances. So you're right. There are people that go out here and do that, and we need to put those people in jail. But as we have heard from other citizens that, well, some people, you know, I could write a bad check. You could write a bad check. You know, we don't want to get warrants and put those folks in jail when they can go and take care of it and get the restitution and get it done. So I think that, I mean, this is a, we use the word compromise or a good idea, or, I mean, this is a process to speed up the process, get the reimbursement to the victims faster, and keep us from having to have so many warrants that we either have to go serve and or have to return to the magistrate because somebody else is taking care of it along the way. The issue you had is that particular magistrate just happened to be out that day. We referred that gentleman to go back to the magistrate, and as we assume he has done that because we haven't heard any more from them. So, Matt, you can get warrants all week long. You just have to go to the magistrate's office who is open. That particular one just happened not to be open that day.
Well, he
Excuse me,
was
Ms. Wilson,
told- he was-
I need to get some more time.
Yeah,
We out of time.
I'd move to extend 15.
15 minutes. Have a second, Ms. Wilson.
That'd be plenty.
I hope we won't need that long, but
All in-
basically,
Give me a second. All in favor of the motion, show hands. All opposed? So the motion carries. Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Moore, Mr. Crowder, and Ms. Wilson in favor, and Ms. Floyd opposes. Sorry,
May I
Ms. Wilson.
continue?
basically what the individual used to be able to go to the magistrate's office and get a warrant without an investigation by law enforcement. You cannot do that now.
When did
Anything from an assault to any magistrate level charge has to be investigated by law enforcement, including bad checks. So I think that's the difference of the way it was then versus now.
And when did that take effect?
Been years.
Okay, so it's only now coming to us in this form. I have to say, it sounds like a good way to go, but I have had numerous people who are opposed to this in business. It's been like 2 or 3 to 1 who are opposed to it, and some of the concerns are that it costs like $221 per bad check. Is that correct?
It depends on the amount of the check. Each check basically has a $30 processing fee, which would be charged anyway, because that goes back to the merchant. And it has a $41 fee for the county, and then a $50 fee to run the worthless check unit.
Well, what I'd like
So-
to propose,
For the
as we have so much concern here, and if it works, that will be awesome. If it doesn't, I think
Then I won't
what
continue.
I would propose is to amend this resolution to require that we have monthly reports with appropriate backup if we pass this measure, and also that it would be extended, says here, the agreement shall be automatically renewed each fiscal year unless a written notice is given by either party at least 90 days prior to the end of the fiscal year. I would propose to amend that to say that the agreement shall be automatically renewed each fiscal year unless written notice is given by either party on or before May 30, 2012, and each year. Now, I put in the form of a motion.
Have a motion by Ms. Wilson, a second by Mr. Moore. Ms. Allen.
Well, you will know, obviously, how the worthless check unit is doing because we will be turning over to you the fines and fees collected for the county. So you will have that.
As I say, it won't be no
That's
problem,
so
won't be no
many.
problem to you to give a report then. like
Well,
Ms. Wilson.
you'll get it
Yep.
with the check
Yep.
that we turn over to the county.
Every time this has come up and we've looked at it, there've been questions about the fact that there's so many fewer checks written now, and people are using debit cards, and the banks are doing the automatic check deal. it sounds like this will taper down to less and less. And since you'll be requiring of us that we provide the budget for an employee.
No, I'm not.
Not, yeah.
This costs you nothing. It is a self-sustaining program that the offenders pay for.
But what
So if I can't sustain it, then I won't do it anymore. So obviously, I will know if I can sustain it because I'm not going to be asking you for any more funds that deal with running a worthless check union. I'm not going to ask you for any funds to establish it. I mean, that's why it's a win-win. It has worked the way it has. It has been successful in at least 35 counties out of 46 in this state. I mean, honestly, it is not that difficult, because if it doesn't work and it doesn't sustain itself, then I'm not going to run it. I'm not going to run something out of my office that's going to cost me money. I mean, it's honestly that simple. I mean, we collect the fees. We are helping small businesses. And if I can help small businesses who work hard in today's economy recoup their money lost for people who intentionally go from business to business to business and write bad checks, then I feel that I need to try and do that. And I would think that every member of county council would want to help the hardworking citizens of Anderson County to recoup lost money. And this allows us, this is one way that we can do this. It is a diversion program. That's all it is. It helps the sheriff, it helps small business owners, and it's voluntary. You don't have to use it. It is voluntary. So if it doesn't work in Anderson, then I won't continue it. But that is a decision that I will make based on the amount of businesses that come to me and individuals who come to me and ask me for it. But I can tell you, I get calls every day, and it has been extremely successful in Oconee County, and it's working. And Anderson County does at least double, if not 3 times of Oconee.
Thank
So
you.
it will work.
Thank you, Ms. Let me get back, and Ms. Wilson, your motion and your amendment is taken off the table right now. We ain't got a motion on the floor. We gotta get a main motion before we can amend something other. We gotta get,
Okay.
then we'll amend it.
Okay.
We have a motion to amend the, motion to move resolution.
Move.
Second.
Motion, motion, Ms. Floyd, makes motion to move. Mr. Allen seconds. Now any discussion. Mrs. Wilson wants to,
May I?
go ahead.
Well, quite frankly, I'm a little disappointed in that I did not get the information that I requested. Reminds me of asking for information about another subject several months ago and being assured that I would be provided the information, and then being told at the last moment that that information would not be provided to me because, quote, you did not know where I was going with the information. And so subsequently I voted against, I abstained from voting on that particular item.
Mr. Crowder, I don't remember ever saying that.
May I finish my remarks, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I mean, you've had the floor, and I think it's time for me. Tonight, I asked, prior to this meeting, that the sheriff get the information that he did verbally discuss from Sheriff Metz and the sheriff up in Oconee County, and that he would provide information and documentation. Said he had a slide presentation. And I did get the email that said, that he had changed computers and it wasn't. Well, and last but not least, now I hear you saying that the documentation for the success of the program will be the checks that we get each month and not any reports that tell us how many people were in violation, how many did you serve warrants, how many did you really collect, more analytical evaluation of that particular unit that we would have established. So I'm of the opinion that if we approve something where Ms. Wilson was going with her amendment, that it be with the reservation that at the end of a certain period of time, if council was not happy with the process of the worthless check unit that we could shut it down.
Mr. Crowder, according to the law, with all due respect, once it is approved, it becomes my program.
Okay,
So,
so that basically means that even though I've had one person to call me to support it, I've had many people to call me and not support the worthless check unit. So I will be voting then for your lack of being able to do that against the worthless check unit.
and that's fine, Mr. Crowder, but I was actually in front of Finance Committee at least 2 or 3 times. That slideshow presentation has been shown to the Finance Committee. This has been going on for months and months and months. So, I mean, that has been available, and it's been out there.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, 5 years ago, I would agree with you 100%. I'd supported this. But checks are down I went to 3 banks. They're down by 75% in the last 5 years. If we didn't need one of these units 5 years ago, why do we need it now? And the other reason is we got small businesses that are actually, you know, like Walmart and places like that. They actually chase down these bad check writers. We're going to put 2 small businesses around Powdersville probably out of business if we adopt this tonight. And I am against putting any small businesses out of business just to create another government entity that we'd have to fund. And I will be
You're
voting
not funding it.
I will be voting against it.
But the county is not funding it. And the fact that it works in so many different counties, it will work in Anderson, it's working in Oconee, and it is voluntary. And it's worth a shot for these small business owners and individuals who want my help. And that's why I'm here, because it does work.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Floyd?
Thank you. This is probably too much for some people in Anderson County. It sounds more like progress. It sounds like moving on. It sounds more like initiating an innovative idea that might work. I think it's a little too much for some people. If someone goes out of business because of the work that you're doing, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That means we don't have the problem with the checks, bad checks that we have. If you want to know how rampant it is, go to a restaurant, just a little small restaurant. Look on the walls near the cash register. You ever seen those checks stuck up there that said bad checks and the name and address, and you get to read them so you can see if it's somebody you know. Tell me you don't do it. All right, yeah. See if somebody you know. So bad checks are out there. You can talk about all of the check cards and everything you want to do. Good people will probably use a check card. We know we have the money in the bank. Somebody with no money is not going to use a check card because it's going to turn them down immediately. But if they're allowed to write a check, they will write a check. I don't see why we've spent so much time on this. It's not going to cost Anderson County not one dime. Do y'all understand that? It's not going to cost Anderson County not one dime. This lady here is going to take all the responsibility of this thing. She's not asking for any money. She's not asking for any participation. Now, we have an amendment to micromanage, as we do everything else, to micromanage this thing. But I say it's a good thing. I say it's not going to hurt unless you're writing bad checks, and then we'll see your name up on the wall before she gets you. But, and if it puts a friend or a cousin or somebody else out of a job because, I don't know why, because they were collecting bad checks too, they were going out anyhow. All right? Look at the people who need the services. Maybe you don't need it. You know, maybe you folks have everything you ever wanted in your whole life. But there are some people, business people, that need this kind of service. They're trying to make a living too, so you're going to put the small business people out of work to save the check whatever business that would go out. And I only had one person to call me who didn't like it, and I had 50,000 who called me that liked it. I lied too.
Mr. Allen?
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think we've kind of witnessed tonight in living color the building of a mountain out of a molehill. I've heard some arguments against the bad check unit. If bad checks are indeed declining, let's say they go down to zero, then Ms. Adams will be out of business from that end. Another complaint that I heard was it's another level of bureaucracy. Well, it doesn't sound like that to me. I mean, from what the sheriff described, he has more bureaucracy to deal with in tracking these things down now than if the program was given over to the solicitor's office. It would run simpler, smoother, kind of one-stop shopping for this activity. If they make money fine. If they don't, it's not costing the county a penny. So I just don't see where it's a difficult decision to make. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Wilson?
So much for micromanaging. If we have monthly reports with the appropriate backup, we can determine how it's progressing or reducing in income, and I wouldn't think our solicitor would have a problem with sharing that information with us. If she's correct, it'll be proven out. I just think that this is something either we don't need. It looks like we're swapping a deputy for a solicitor's employee. I'm just concerned that we're going to be holding a position in the solicitor's office that has to be funded, because remember, we're the council that really doesn't like to let go of employees. So it's kind of hard to justify. Let's just put it this way. I don't think our solicitor should have any problem sending us monthly reports if she's correct. So my motion stands.
Mr. Chairman?
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
We got, Ms. Wilson's made an amendment to the original motion. Let me make sure I get it right for Lynn Edmond and the rest of the council. Your motion is to state it, instead of the 90 days, it'll be 60 days to give notice. For B May would be 60 days, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay.
My
State your
motion
motion.
is that we amend the resolution before us to require that we, as council, be provided monthly reports with the appropriate backup tracking the progress of this unit, and that the agreement shall be automatically renewed each fiscal year unless written notice is given by either party on or before May 30th, 2012, and subsequent years, if the desire is to continue.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Floyd?
You're closer.
Solicitor,
Yes, ma'am.
didn't you say that a monthly, a report would be sent to us?
Well, you will, obviously, we will turn over the fees collected for the county to the county. So, based on that amount, it's easy to figure out how many checks are being done each month.
Okay, all right. If you just added how many checks is being done each month, right next to the amount, would that satisfy District 7?
I have
That's
no
what
idea.
she's talking about?
The problem is, it's, just like you said, Mrs. Floyd, the micromanagement. I am an elected solicitor, and I'm not going to run a program that costs us money. I am going to run a program that helps the citizens of Anderson County, and the law requires only that county approve it. And then it becomes the solicitor's office program. It is a diversionary program.
All right, are you going to ask, are you asking for money to hire somebody
No,
to
ma'am.
implement this program for you?
No, ma'am. I'm not asking for anything except an approval, because the law requires that the county approve it before I start it.
Okay.
You know, we may get into this and find out ways to improve it, and I will improve it. And if it doesn't work, I will stop it.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Allen.
Chairman.
That's simple.
I think the first thing we need to keep in mind is it's not our program, it's a solicitor's program. So even if she were to submit reports every month, and let's say we're showing zero money, well, what are we going to do about it? I mean, she's going to knock the program in the head herself because they're not getting any money. There's no need for us to say anything. If we wanted to look at maybe a 6-month compilation, here's the total amount of money you've received or something, might be okay. But it is the solicitor's program. For us to receive monthly updates would serve no purpose because we don't control that program anyway.
Mr. Chair, I call for the question.
Call for the question, we have a second.
Second?
Second, Mr. Allen. Voting on calling for the question? Favor? All opposed and calling for the question? Crowder, how'd you vote?
Voted yes. The call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of calling for the question, Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Mr. Floyd, Mr. Dunn, and Mr. Crowder. All opposed, Ms. Wilson and Mr. Moore. Now we're voting on Ms. Wilson's amendment. You make it one more time, Ms. Wood, if you don't mind, where everybody can.
My amendment would require that we have monthly reports with the appropriate backup. And the second part of that would be that this agreement shall be automatically renewed each fiscal year unless a written notice is given by either party on or before May 30th. And I guess that can go for 2012 or subsequent years.
All in favor of Ms. Wilson's amendment, show of hands. All opposed? All abstentions? So Ms. Wilson's motion fails with of opposition, Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Ms. Floyd, Mr. Dunn. In favor of Ms. Wilson's motions, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Moore, Mr. Crowder abstains. Now, all in favor of the original motion, show of hands. All opposed? So the motion carries. Mr. Dunn, Ms. Floyd, Mr. Allen, Waters in favor, opposed, Mr. Moore, Mr. Crowder, Ms. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you
Lester.
very much.
Mr. Smith, thank you, and thank you, Sheriff.
Solicitor,
Yes, ma'am.
I wish you the best
Thank you.
in this program, and I thank you for bringing innovative ideas, like to Anderson County.
Thank you so much.
We'll take if no objection, we'll take about a 10-minute recess for bathroom break. Hear none? Adjourn.
How you doing, Miss Vance?
If she's not making any, if it's not costing her anything, they can move.
was gonna be on 5 o'clock. They keep changing. Ads. Really?
I know.
I'll listen. I want to see. I'm seeing. Both of it. I'll check.
It's nice talking to you. Can I come in? Thank you. I'm not leaving. May I enter?
She started talking and she ran out of time. I asked for it, yeah, I have a copy. But, I'll call you, Nate. She gave it to you.
Don't worry, that's not gonna happen.
And I also. Okay.
Have you noticed that?
I'm sorry?
They were talking about checks and all of that, bad checks. A lot of places, they didn't even mention, a lot of places don't even take checks anymore. Especially restaurants and places like, smaller
Yeah.
businesses.
Don't take long for them to figure out they don't want them, do they?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of places, if you got a lot of bad checks coming in, don't take checks. A lot of them do that. I know that New York Pizza, they used to take checks and quit taking them.
Yeah.
Places like that.
I can't say that I blame them.
Yeah.
Everybody listen up. We're going to be getting started in just a couple minutes. Sort of easing back in.
This typo?
Everybody, would you gather back in? We're gonna be getting started. Everybody gather back in. Yeah. This time I call the regular meeting of the August 16th council meeting back in session. Now moving on to 7B, resolution concerning the disposition of county council district recreational funds and matters related thereto. Mr. Pitts.
Mr. Chairman, what y'all have before you is a resolution that I crafted to try and address that budget proviso 8613 that has to do with rec funds. And the way this thing would basically work would be that you have one category of expenditures, which would be an emergency or an unforeseen circumstance. That ought to be easy enough to deal with and identify, and the budget proviso specifically allows for that. Then for everything else, this procedure would kick in, where you would be transferring money from one line item in the budget to a separate, distinct line item for each appropriation, so that it's clear exactly who is getting the money and the purposes for the money and the exact amount. We've been complying with this budget proviso in spirit for quite some time, and hopefully this resolution would then would allow us to comply with the letter as well. I think this is a good workable solution. I do have it coming through the Finance Committee for a first crack. My reasoning for that was twofold. One is all of the other budget transfers we've been doing, I believe that's the way they've been done, so I did that to be consistent. And then the other thing would be just to give just an extra amount of notice out to the public, so that if anybody had an objection to a particular expenditure, they'd give them that much more notice of what we were doing and an opportunity to be heard about it. So that's what the resolution is in a nutshell.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Moore, to accept, and second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Floyd?
Okay, I asked Mr. Pitts about what other counties are doing other than this, and he told me he did get an answer back from Greenville.
Greenwood.
Excuse me, Greenwood, South
Yes, ma'am.
Carolina.
I believe that's right, yes, ma'am.
Okay, Greenwood, South Carolina, and they are doing something differently. The part that bothers me is that if I have a request and I send it and it goes to the Finance Committee, then that's putting them over me, the Finance Committee, on my project, on what I have been given the responsibility to do. And that is to dispense my recreation budget to the citizens of District 2. And I understood that no council member can be over any other council member, but I feel that doing it this way will put in the Financial Committee, which consists of 3 council members, over me. And then my next question is, if all of my stuff have to go to them, then where will they send their requests? Who will be over them to do the request? Who will be the one to give the okay for District 7 and District 3 and whatever else? Will that be them? And if they do their own, wouldn't that be a conflict of interest? I would like to propose another way that it can be done without having to go through the Finance Committee. I think that if each one of us, well, I'll tell you what, before I mess it up, would you, Mr. Pitts, would you please explain the other way that could be possible, that is possible?
Yes, ma'am. I think this would still work if y'all were to amend it and provide that just at each county council meeting, for each appropriation, you vote to do it by way of a line item budget transfer and cut out the Finance Committee component. I think that would still work.
And then each one of us will have authority over our own rec recreational funds as far as it pertains to our district. And I will put that amendment, that change into a motion.
Second. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with Mrs. Floyd, and just to put this into the historical context for our citizens, we passed our budget on third reading June 21st, and the proviso was put into place, I guess, June 30th by the state. And we didn't receive notification until we began make our appropriations. Was it July 19th, Mr. Waters, up at Wren? And we suddenly had this thrown at us. There's another method, too, and that's that we get our appropriations and do it in the form of a supplemental budget. But perhaps Ms. Floyd's might be simpler. But anyway.
Well, for my thing, Ms. Floyd's a whole lot more simpler, because a supplemental budget, I would take 3 readings and I wouldn't know what I'll, I don't know about y'all, but I don't know, a lot of mine is emergencies or unforeseen, don't come up. I've got no problem with Ms. Floyd's. I understand what Mr. Pitts was trying to do, but it's not having nobody over nobody, because the ultimate save, remember, comes, all of it, taxpayers' money, and all of it comes before county council. That's who's got the ultimate say. And that's who it comes before.
May I make a
Crowder?
comment, please? I want to correct the misconception. The Finance Committee does not withhold anything that's brought before it. Even if we disagree with it, it is brought to the next council meeting for full council's vote. So I want to make sure does everybody y'all agree that we do that?
Yes, sir.
We try to be good stewards. We realize that it takes full council to vote, and we are only a screening committee that looks at stuff to give citizens the opportunity to come to the Finance Committee and express any concerns as an additional level of public awareness and transparency.
Mr. Chair? Oh.
Mr. Allen?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think Ms. Floyd had a great idea, and Mr. Crowder just more or less confirmed it there, that going to the Finance Committee would just be an extra step that we don't need, because it's going to come before the council anyway. So instead of my having to give all my paperwork to the Finance Committee, all we'll do is just, let me get this correct, if I understand the amendment, when we get ready at each council meeting to read these things, like I want X number of dollars to a certain group, we would just approve that as a line item transfer.
Be done beforehand. That's right.
It's actually already being done now, isn't it? We just don't vote on it in that form.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New way we do it is that way, it just ain't voted in that form. All in favor of Ms. Floyd's amendment, show of hands. All opposed? All abstentions? The motion carries. Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Ms. Floyd, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Moore, Ms. Wilson in favor. Mr. Crowder abstains. Go back to the original motion. All in favor of the original motion? Show of hands.
As amended?
As amended, I'm sorry.
As amended.
As amended. All opposed, like sign, so the motion as amended is unanimous. Moving on to item number 8, report from the Finance Committee. And note there's, we didn't have a demotion or nothing. Mr. Allen's not the chairman of the Finance Committee. It's Mr. Crowder. Mr. Crowder, Chairman Crowder.
Anytime you'd like to take over, you just let me know.
No, thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right, what we'd like to do is group some of these together so that we won't be laborious about the process. But, maybe we should take them one at a time, because I would hate for any council member to think that I'm trying to pull anything over on any other council member. What is your pleasure? Would you like to take them one at a time, or would you like to group them?
I've looked over them. I like to group them where you could.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm ready. All right, what we'd like to do is to take the first 4 items under the sheriff's office on your supporting documents, which consist of the Tahoe, the Crown, Ford Crown, and lighting, and present those first items as a recommendation for the Finance Committee for approval.
Have a motion coming to Finance Committee, doesn't need a second, or any discussion. All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed? So the motion carries unanimously. Chairman?
All right, Mr. Chairman, we recommend the Nikon DS300S Pro digital camera, and even though the Finance Committee recommends it for full council's authority, I will be voting against this particular item. I feel like that, I know that we're not supposed to micromanage the sheriff's activity. I fully agree with that concept. But I also think that we need to be frugal in the expenditure of general taxpayers' money. So the Finance Committee does recommend to you for the approval of that.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Have a motion coming past me, doesn't need a second, Ms. Wilson.
May I ask the sheriff, did you have a chance to look at Mr. Hill's information, and is this camera equivalent to what you were requesting through the Finance Committee and now here?
I didn't have a chance to look at it prior to this, didn't know that, and I actually asked him for a copy, so I'm always willing to look at things. I don't think it's going to come up to the standard that we use in our forensics division. Like I told y'all in the committee, I mean, my forensics guys go out every day on burglaries and take thousands of pictures a week. And the Nikon that we have recommended, you know, withstands that. It's the industry standard, and that's the one we need.
Sheriff, how many cameras do you have?
Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How many cameras does the sheriff's department have?
I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that each one of my forensics folks have one, and we are adding a forensics person in that division, and so I think that comes to 8. With that said, we do have, and we had this program even in the Sheriff Crenshaw days and back even to Gene Taylor, where we bought similar cameras to what y'all were talking about on a more casual basis for each officer to have his own camera. So when he goes out on assault that the officer handles, like there may be a domestic where he goes out, he arrests the husband, and the wife's got some bruises, they have a small digital camera. So the answer to that is right now all of our uniform folks don't have those, and we're in the process of getting prices for those, come back and possibly purchase those. So basically we want every uniform officer to have a small, so these Nikon cameras in forensics, we basically have 8 or so in our forensics division and a few other folks. The ultimate answer to your question about how many cameras do we have, I don't have a number for that, but we have a lot. Because that's the kind of business we're in, taking evidence photographs and taking them to court.
But Mr. Moore still got the floor. Ms. Floyd?
Okay, Sheriff, I was appalled by this figure here of $1,049 for a camera for the Sheriff's Department. I've got a camera home worth that much, and the only thing I do with mine is take it to the beach and loan it to my kids every now and then. What kind of piece of camera would this much money buy?
The $1,000 one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this internet search here is, I can't speak to it because I don't know what kind of model this is. It's a Sony, and it's not something I'm familiar with. And like I said, my folks go out. We take thousands of pictures, sometime a week, and you know, and those things are. I mean, that shutter's flicking, and we need an industrial strength model, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Well, I wish that that you were called to get more information about this before this was submitted.
You know, and just for the rest of you, I explained this to the Finance Committee. We have our own purchasing, I don't want to call it department because obviously we don't have an department, but I've got 2 finance folks that are, and we came here to one of our workshops months ago, CPA. We have a lady that has a master's degree in economics and a couple other things, and we also have another fellow that has a background in purchasing. And because we are the largest department in the county, we have our own little process. We follow the procurement process of the county, but we have our folks, instead of me having a lieutenant or a captain or a sergeant going out and getting prices on cameras, we send that to our finance division. The fellow searches it, he goes on the internet, he does all the camera shops and gets the price that we need for the model we need, and then he submits it through Robert Carroll and through our purchasing department, and then they double check it and make sure we've done what we need to do, and then that's when we pass it on. So we do search out the best prices for the things that we get. And I think in the Finance Committee, we mentioned the B&H Photo. We do a lot of work with those because we do a lot of other things through Photo. They've been a good company. They deliver quickly. So we've never had any problems with them. And so that's one reason they're used, and I think a lot of people use them. But there are other vendors out there, so if they give a better price, we do go with those.
Mr. Chairman?
Floyd, you through? Mr.
Just
Allen?
out of curiosity, I haven't heard the word state contract mentioned at all. Do they not handle this kind of thing?
I don't know if that's on state contract or not. I
don't know
I would
either.
ask.
Okay, thank you.
Carol's sitting over
Think Mr. Carroll might know? He's doing a crossword puzzle, so. No. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'd just like to say, along this camera line, I don't know what's the best, but I do want the sheriff's department, whoever the sheriff is, to have the best equipment. And I have to trust them to give them what they ask for. I'm not a thing, and if, until they prove me wrong, I want to be frugal and watch taxpayers' money too. But citizens have elected the sheriff, and I hope they run it. Only time will tell. If not, the citizens will speak otherwise. But the bottom line is, I got to trust him to know what he wants and compare apples with apples. In my business, I get run into a lot, and that's what's discouraging, compare apples with oranges. So I want to make sure they get what they want, and I'll be voting in favor of this. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed? So the motion carries. Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Floyd, Mr. Dunn, in favor of, opposed, Mr. Moore, Crowder, Ms. Wilson.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. The next item is under Fleet Services. They request to be able to purchase 2 evaporator cooling fans because of the excess heat that they're experiencing out at the Fleet Service bays, and the Finance Committee recommends approval of these 2 items.
Have a motion coming from Finance Committee, doesn't need a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Dunn, the next 2 items, B and C, are actually in your packet only for information. They do not require a vote. Part of what council has done is ask that when somebody applies for a grant, for them to be able to fill out this financial impact form so that we can have some idea of how much money is in the grant and what the future expectations from the county or other funding sources are. So the sheriff was very kind to go back and fill these out, and we really appreciate him cooperating in that. And so these are in your packet information, but does not require a vote on our part.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving along.
All right, so let me turn pages. Revised personnel use of county-owned vehicles. You will find in your packet a policy and procedures for driving county-owned vehicles for personnel use ordinance, and you will also see an accompanying form for each employee to fill out. We discussed this. The form was submitted to us for actual study and input that we might have, and the only questions that came up, well, some of the questions that came up was the fact the statement is made that if somebody is approved to take the vehicle home, they don't have to fill out the form. So council would be cognizant of the fact that those kind of visits would not be recorded. Is that right, Mr. Pitts? I mean, Mr. Burns? Also, you'll notice that there are some recommendations. For example, it is permissible to take the vehicle home for lunch if you live within 10 miles of your work. Somebody called it to my attention that attended the Finance Committee meeting, that if that meant 10 miles one way, then that would mean that somebody could travel 20 miles round trip. if it were that extreme and at 50 cents a mile, that would be subsidizing an employee to the effect of, say, $10 a day, 21 work days a month. That'd be $210 a month just to go home and eat lunch. I didn't catch that. Somebody called me and said, was I aware of what item in it? But it also goes on to say dropping a child off at daycare, going to a medical center, going to a grocery store, blah, 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 is considered a personal use of the vehicle. That is not specifically work-related is considered a personal use of the vehicle, which means that a person could not use a county-owned vehicle to drop a child off, go to the doctor, to the grocery store, the shopping center, the dry cleaner, the drugstore, or any other diversion from home to office. So, right, the question is, does full council agree with the form and the conditions for filling out the form and the exclusions contained in the write-up?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Allen?
I just had a question. Did you say this form would only be filled out by people that were not authorized 24-hour use of a county vehicle?
That's not correct.
That's correct.
That's not correct. All right, what was
the people who take the cars home, who have the permanent take-home cars, would also fill this form out. And again, I'm pointing this out. This is just an example for council to use as a basis for discussion, telling us what the policy should be. It is not the final product.
Okay. I reckon, Mr. Allen, if you will look at the very first bullet, it says the driving of a county-owned vehicle from home to work and from work to home is permissible, also known as commuting mileage, period. Then it says commuting mileage is already taxable and does not need to be entered on the log.
Right.
All right, since doing so would result in double taxation to the employer.
How is that captured, the commuting mileage then? How's that turned into finance?
That was my question. If you didn't fill it out on the form, how would you?
Right.
If you would look in the back, there's a form. And again, this is a basis for opening discussion for council to give us input on what they would like to see, because we had to have a starting point. And the reason we had to have a starting point so we could have something as a basis of discussion. We have the ordinance, and it would also be helpful to all of the people who were involved that we had a standardized form that everybody would be familiar with, and it would be the same thing. It wouldn't be, well, I think this is what the form should look like, or I think this is what the form should look like.
So are we voting on ordinance 2011?
Mr. Allen, and it's really not up, the intention is, Mr. Crowder will state, was not for a vote tonight, but for each member of council to look at it, because it was passed by the full council. Take a look at it and make recommendations back to us.
Okay, so this is just strictly recommendation. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, because if you go on past the form, you'll actually see the ordinance that's already been approved and signed off on. So what this other preamble material is for is to try to specify this is the way we're going to do the ordinance. What does council say? What are your recommendations? All right, going on to the budget transfers, and if you will actually take the packet that was given to you by Ms. Davis. She brought this up just a while ago. This is a change. None of the dollar values changed, but she's made some changes in object class codes. Is that not right? She just made some changes in object class codes. So, Finance Committee, let's take all of them from page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and then down to the middle of page 5. I see now. Rita, was that $3,500 included in these? Okay. All right, let's go back to one that is on page 5. If you look at, well, let's see, on your page, that's not 5, it's the old page 5. I ate these last minute. All right. On this new sheet that I just got to, if you take a look at the very second item, let's take all of them other than that particular item. For everything that's on these pages and all of this page other than the item that says communication salary to telephone $3,500. The Finance Committee recommended all the items other than that item. We'll come back to that item.
Have a motion come to Finance Committee, doesn't need a second. There any discussion?
Which item are we skipping? I think it's the last page.
The last page,
Okay,
communication
please tell
salary
me,
telephone.
please tell me why,
We're coming back to that one, Mr.
no.
Come back to you.
Not my question.
I'm sorry.
My question is, tell me again, we are using this copy, this copy, what was changed?
I have to let Mr. Crowder explain that.
Well, Finance realized that when they submitted this original documentation to us, that somebody had used the wrong object class code
Patience.
for some of the items that money needed to. And so this form tonight,
Where is the object classification that you're talking about? And where can that be
Ms.
found?
Davis, come up, please.
That'll be, that's important.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Floyd, I apologize for the confusion, but, for example, in your agenda packet, the page 1 of the transfers, the one that says treasurer, $25, Social Security, that actually, we have changed it on the form that was at your station tonight, and it just says retirement. Instead of 130, it's 121. That would be on your first page, the 6th item down.
That's the only one.
And then the only other corrections would be some minor changes on the related personnel line items for environmental enforcement. It's on the 3rd page of the one I handed out tonight. That 3rd page, 6, 7, 8th one down. There's minor corrections there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Davis, if this happens again in the future, would you kind of help us out by maybe putting an asterisk against the one that you
Sure will.
move? Because this is just too confusing.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
always get a little, I just get a little concerned when I get one paper I've been looking at all week, and when I get here, you give me another one.
I see.
And
Okay.
and I'm trying to find everything here, but you tell me it's different, but, yeah. But
Good point.
It'll just be easier,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? Thank you, Ms.
Yeah. Anything else? All in favor of the motion? Show of hands. All opposed, all abstentions. So the motion carries. Mr. Waters, Mr. Allen, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Moore, Mr. Crowder, Ms. Wilson in favor, and Ms. Floyd abstains. Chairman?
All right, Chairman, we'll go back to the item on the fourth page, which is between departments, communication salary to, no, that's not it. Communications on item 2, salary to telephone, $3,500. It's to cover the cost of 911 lines and non-emergent lines in the dispatch center, and we requested additional documentation of that, because if you read the write-up, it appears that someone made unilaterally a decision to add 3 more phones during the year, which then caused the budget to be overspent. Sheriff, go to it, sir.
Yes, sir. And I passed out, or one of these gentlemen over here put a thing on your station, so one page with a line across it. I might have to ask Ms. Davis to get up here. And I'm not sure what that write-up says. It appears that we added 3 lines, but in talking to Ms. Davis, we did not add any lines in the 911 center. Is that correct, Ms. Davis?
Not certain about that. The write-up does not state that, though.
Right. And I don't know that we added any lines. And the paper that I gave you is just this. On that line item of 5213, that was the communications, and these are bills that go to, actually, I think these phone bills just come directly to y'all. They don't come through the sheriff's office, or they end up to you to pay because it's all out of the account. And these are monthly bills for the phone, and they are pretty much steady monthly bills, month after month after month. And if you can look in the department requested column, we requested $85,000 to take us through the entire year. You'll notice that the column to the right of it is administrator's recommended amount of $81,500, which is then the approved amount which y'all adopted in the last year's budget. Now let's keep in mind, in this whole transfer, and I think a lot of people miss this when they talk about transfers, all those transfers at the Finance Committee was for last year's budget. I don't think any of them were for this current year's budget, July, August. These were all for the year ends when in July and August of this year, bills come in for May, June of last year, and so these are items to finish out that year.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've asked to do, because we did have personnel in the 911 center that wasn't 100% all year long, we do have money in that account, and they asked to put $3,500 over in to pay the $85,000 we'd asked for originally to pay for that monthly bill. And that is for the phone lines at the 911 center. I do not have any documentation that we added phone lines in the 911 center.
All right.
You pay now, you
I
pay
recommend
now.
that we this forward and approve it.
Have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed, like sign, so the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right.
You pay now, you pay later.
If you'll, Chairman, if you'll give me just a moment to get my old pages in sync with my new pages. Doesn't occur again.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something while he's looking?
Ms. Wilson.
I know we're all rather frustrated with what we've had to go through here. We're working in very difficult times financially, and in reference to what we're looking at right now, these were departments that were transferred last year toward the end of the budget year, really. I guess it would have been March. And it was just very difficult. I had requested that we have everything delineated out, and I think if we had taken the time to delineate what had already been spent from what was anticipated to be spent, I think we would have an easier time of it now, but it didn't happen. That's why we're having a hard time working through it all. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairman, I've now synced these sheets with the sheets that we actually approved. All right, if you'll go to this particular packet was in your book tonight, not the new stuff. You go to the one that actually is at the top that says solid waste, service contracts, electricity and gas, $5,000, and registration, elections, travel, the photocopy, $10, and transfer, well, let's take those first because this is previous fiscal year. So we recommend those for approval, Chairman.
Hang on just a second, let's maybe get caught up. Wait.
Page 6. Under E.
Well, this is actually page 6 in your old stuff.
We have a,
It's in the book. One in the book.
motion coming from Finance Committee, doesn't need a second, or any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, show of hands. Got it, Chip? All in favor of the motion, again, show of hands. All opposed, like sign, so motion carries unanimously. Chairman?
Thank you, Chairman. The last item is transfer actually from the current fiscal year budget. Tonight, you previously approved the purchase of the 2 evaporators for the fleet service, and there was no money in the budget for those items. So this line item is to be able to take money out of repairs to buildings and put it in capital purchases so that they can purchase the 2 evaporator coolers for the bays at fleet service in the amount of $2,541.88. Finance Committee recommends that for approval.
Have a motion coming from Finance Committee again, it doesn't need a second, or any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed? Like sign. So the motion carries unanimously. Chairman?
That concludes our recommendations.
Thank y'all. Moving on. Number 9, bid approvals, we have there. Number 10, appointments, various boards and commissions, Ms. Wilson.
I have none, thank you.
Crowder.
I have none at this time, but I will have several next council meeting, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a great honor and privilege tonight to nominate Ronnie Bratcher to the Civic Center Board.
Have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Motion, Mr. Moore. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
I was a little confused about this county district. Sidney Wilson, in parentheses, appointment by Eddie Moore. Please explain that. I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to know what you're talking about.
I think it, excuse me, if I can, maybe clear it up. I think this gentleman is appointed by Mr. Moore by Elizabeth Wilson's district. Is that correct, Mr. Moore? Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, we never had to make a denotion on that before. Do we have to do it now?
I just think he just done it. I didn't look, I think he just done it to
Okay,
give it for information.
okay, good.
He's right on the line.
It's right on the line. He says, any more discussion? All in favor of Mr. Moore's motion? All opposed, like sign, so motion carries unanimously. Mr. Moore?
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
I have none. Mr. Floyd?
I don't have any.
Mr. Allen?
I have none.
Mr. Waters, I'm sorry.
I have one, have an appointment for the Airport Committee, Stephen Epstein. And what happened is one of my members resigned, so Mr. Epstein will be replacing
Was that in our book?
I don't know if it is or not.
I don't think it is. You just come in late day. If you can, Mr. Moore, I don't think I have a meeting. Can you just make sure everybody gets a copy of that and hold it next meeting night?
I'll do that.
Next council meeting. Be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, request for council members. Mr. Waters, you got any request?
I don't. None.
Mr. Allen?
I do. Now, according to the way we're going to do this, we just do this as a budget transfer?
We can't,
Line item transfer, I mean, line item,
we don't do that yet, do we?
or do we?
I hadn't come,
In
Yeah,
effect?
you passed it tonight, so.
oh, it's resolution, I thought it was
Resolution.
ordinance, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Resolution.
Okay,
And also, of course, if it's an unforeseen circumstance or an emergency, that's the
that's
other.
already can anyway.
do it.
Okay.
You want to do a budget transfer though, don't you, Mr. Allen, I think?
Yeah, I was going to do a budget.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was trying to get my paperwork together to do that, because I've had several requests laying around for a while. Pendleton Recreation Department, $5,000. And also, I've got too much paperwork laying around here.
Was that 3,000 or 5,000?
5,000.
Okay, because it says in our, is that Pendleton High School?
That's the band
That's a different
boosters
one.
you're looking at.
That's a different one, Ms.
That's a
Phillips.
different one.
town-
Pendleton Recreation is a different.
They've really gotten us confused here. I don't have that in my,
Yeah, and you know, that actually brings up a good point, because I had it, and it's not actually in the book, so maybe I need to withdraw that until I get all this stuff in the
Yeah,
book.
maybe it-
I'll tell you what, I'm going to withdraw everything tonight till I get this situated, because there's a couple of things that are not in the book that I need to get in there, so that's a good point. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm just going to do that.
Ms. Floyd?
Yes, I have one appropriation, but it's from the paving account. And and I don't think I have to submit any kind of paperwork or stamps or, okay, it's for $10,000 to the Anderson City, to the city of Anderson, okay, and it's for roads and paving.
Have a motion, Ms. Floyd, give appropriate $10,000 of her paving account to the city of Anderson's paving account, or.
In the
or
form of a motion.
Form of a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Second, Ms. Wilson, any discussion? Favor the motion, show of hands. All opposed, like sign. I'll show the motion carries unanimously, Ms. Floyd.
That's all, thank you.
I have none, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to wait until we can have all the copies of forms in our book.
Crowder?
I reckon I have a question that's a point of order. If somebody has previously allocated money to something and the form was filled out as a general request to each council member, do we have to resubmit that at the next council?
I think that'd be best thing to do to get it, at least to get the budget transfers going anyway, I think.
In that case, I have none tonight.
Okay, Ms. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll look in your agenda packet, District 7 has had a request from the Shutter Volunteer Fire Department. Of course, their request is far more than the district actually has left. They're requesting a total cost of a vehicle for $30,000 to pull the foam trailer, which is very important to the ethanol and tank farm and other infrastructure issues over there. And at this point, I would make the motion to appropriate $3,500 in the form of a budget transfer to this need.
Have a motion from Ms. Wilson, $3,500 to the Shutter Fire Department. Second, Mr. Moore, any discussion?
Is this an emergency?
Well, it will be if something blows up over
Okay.
there.
I think we have to include that into our request or whatever, but anyway.
All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign, so motion carries unanimously. Ms. Wilson,
Thank you.
you think? We're on item number 12, Administrator's Report. Mr. Burns?
Mr. Chairman, if every member of council could give us just a little bit of time to look at the proposed county council district maps, we would like to get that process started with council's permission to have some public hearings so people could come in and look at the new council district maps.
Thank you. Please, everybody try to get something scheduled with the staff and Mr. Burns and get that underway.
I'll be there.
Mr. Chairman, are
Wilson.
we on the administrator's report? May I ask a couple of questions? I was reading through the transfers, and I was a little bit confused and just had some questions about there were transfers to accommodate more long-distance calls, which were out of the area than were anticipated. Is there any way, I know a lot of us have phone programs for our home phones and cells where we have unlimited long distance, it seems like it might be less expensive in the long run just to do that. If we could get kind of a comparison and look at
Can do
that,
that.
because a lot of these involve $110, $85, stuff like that, so it kind of mounts up. And, here's $185 and so on. And then the other question doesn't have a page number, but it's transportation, the Anderson Regional Airport, insurance to professional services, $898.95. It says the budget for credit card charges is strictly a guess based on past history. It says this charge is tied a customer use of a credit card to pay for fuel or services provided by the airport. An increase in revenue due to increased fuel sales or an increased customer base will increase credit card usage. The airport has experienced both this fiscal year. Jet fuel sales exceeded last year by 14,000 gallons. And I'm not sure I understand that because it says from insurance to professional services, but it seems to be dealing with a credit card charge that may be related to fuel sales.
I can get you a detailed explanation of that and provide it to every other council member tomorrow.
Okay. Any guess as to what that is?
It possibly, and this is off the top of my head, it could be with the jet. It's doubled our purchases of jet fuel, and we've been informed that the gentleman is fixing to buy a larger jet, which we're all for, which will increase jet fuel purchases even more.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Davis might have some input.
Ms. Wilson, I believe that actually, count 206 is credit card charges. You know, every
That's
time you swipe
what I was thinking.
card,
Oh, okay.
the bank will charge you, and that's just their bank fees.
Because they're using more credit cards out there, that's what X-Bank
Because
says, they're using more.
That's right,
Right,
sir.
get more business.
Yes, sir.
Port
That
action.
jet comes in
Credit
and out just like that.
Just clarification, the Anderson Regional Airport actually has a credit card account, a category. But this is to professional services, not to the credit card. Anyway,
Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you. Ms. Floyd.
Mr. Chair, I have some questions about the back of the book, section 12, at the end of it. Turn to section 12 and look right behind all those other things there, and you'll find some appropriation forms. There's one in there for the Boys and Girls Club, Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club, and Boys and Girls Club. I mean, why is it there? What does it, is it just nothing to be, it's complete? So your name is on one of them.
That's just letting, that's money the council voted approved out of District 5's recreation account a couple of meetings ago. I think it was in Wren.
Why is it still in here? Is it something that we're gonna start doing it?
I don't know that, I can't answer that, I don't know. I'll find out.
Okay.
Just haven't put it in there, I guess, I don't know. I guess that's just maybe to keep up with, so we'll know, keep track of it or something, but I'll find out.
Okay, and another thing.
Yes, ma'am.
May I go back to the agenda, please?
Yes, ma'am.
On the agenda, we scratched out item 6C.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell me a little bit about what that was about? Because we received nothing in the information. I mean, we received nothing. But
I don't know.
you don't know.
No, ma'am.
wasn't that maybe another approach to dealing with that proviso issue?
It could have been.
I think, isn't that what it was? And may I, Mr. Chairman, in looking at that section 12 under the paving accounts, I've gotten very confused, and I thought that in our budget discussions and motions and votes and everything that we were restoring the district paving accounts, and that we were going to each district get their roads and streets and estimates to Mr. Hopkins and have it go to a one contract bid. I was really, really distraught when I saw that there's really virtually no money in paving. I know that when 09 and 2010, we did away with the district paving accounts because we were in dire straits financially. And the same for the just finished budget year. And then we were going to increase the actual asphalt account, which is in 5221, that's roads and bridges. We went 09, 2010, we cut out the district paving funds. That was supposed to go directly there. I'm not sure I've ever tracked it through. And in addition, we had $500,000 for the asphalt account. This past year, it was cut to $400,000 asphalt, and we really didn't have money for district paving. And this year, I thought we were restoring the district paving, which is approximately $1.6 million, which is by specific formula pro rata given partially to each of the 7 districts. I know in District 7, I think it was typically around $253,000 that we had been getting based on the formula. And this year, we managed to eke it back up to $447,950 for the asphalt fund, and I think we've only gotten a total of $105,000 to be calculated out. For example, District 7 got $15,460.11. And that's not enough when we need to be spending $8 to $10 million a year on roads. I'm very concerned.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe if you just a little bit this thing generous what's actually been spent on roads, because we are getting in years past where you brought this up, we hadn't been getting that money as far as county roads. We've been getting some money from
C-Fund.
C-Fund.
That's
Mr. Burns?
Mr. Chairman, the amount of money placed in each council person's district was based on a combination of road miles and population. Not every member of council received the same amount. That's in district paving. I believe that we increased the amount of money in asphalt by over $100,000 this year. That money will be used for patching. It will also be used for chip seal work. What we are doing now, and we'll be asking council in September to give us a list of the roads that they want paved. We will then take those roads, based on council's recommendations, to the C-Fund Committee, who in years past has given us up to $1.5 million. We'll probably be hopefully able to receive $1 million, but it will be based on the recommendations of council. So that is another source of funding. We will turn that in at the Anderson County Transportation Committee meeting at their October meeting.
Hadn't we been getting about $2.9 million?
There's a combination of funds they get, Ms. Wilson. Some of that money goes to county roads and some of it goes to state roads.
So we're being dropped to about $1 million now, and we hear that SCDOT is broke, and we only have $447,950 for asphalt and only $105,000 as opposed to 1.6 plus million for the district paving. So we're really dealing with a hardship here.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one observation?
Mr. Crowder?
I'll try to be quick about it.
Yes, sir.
This question came up, and I had some people research it today. Go back to the May 17, 2011 minutes. There was some discussion about this particular subject, and I'll just quickly read the paragraphs. Ms. Wilson said, "Mr. Chairman, however, we decided to do this. It would be good if we worked with Mr. Hopkins. Each council district taking their pool of funds and working with Mr. Hopkins to prioritize needs to be done and have a deadline so it can go out under one contract. That would help." Mr. Dunn, I think that's what we've done last time, and I think they give us a list of those roads saying what they thought was. They prioritize and give us a list to see if we agree to it. We're making changes on and it goes out at one time. This just documents.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anything else? Moving on to citizens' comments, number 13. Please step forward and state your name and district. Address the chair, please. Mr. Pitts.
Mr. Chairman, first up is Jonathan Hill.
Thank you, members. I'm Jonathan Hill from Council District 4. I just want to say thank you for considering the suggestion that I brought. It would have been nice if you would have postponed the capital request regarding cameras to give the sheriff time to adequately review and compare the two models. But and also, you know, somebody could have looked to see if perhaps there were some refurbished models of his preferred model out there. That's another possibility. But at any rate, I do appreciate your considering what I had to say. Regarding check division, bad check division, I'm kind of new to the situation. I haven't heard all the discussion that's been leading up to that at this point, but from what I heard tonight, it sounds like to me that it's a solution in search of a problem. Someone told me once that if it's in the yellow pages, the government shouldn't be doing it. And I appreciate those of you who took a stand on that. Regarding the recreation fund and how that's dispersed and everything, I would remind you that it's not your money. It's the taxpayers' money. And it's not yours to do with whatever you want to do with it. And quite frankly, I think it's bad policy. And in many cases, I think it's an underhanded way, a sly way to use taxpayer money to gain favor with voters. In essence, vote buying. I think we need to abolish that. It's something Davy Crockett understood, Senator Davy Crockett, if I'm not mistaken. He understood that taxpayer money is not for charity. It's not yours to give. Thank you.
Elizabeth Fant, District 3. The last meeting that we had, I think that was Monday a week ago, had to leave a few minutes early. And I was kind of appalled to hear that when you got to the business about the recreational money, that there was some snickering going on. Well, don't ask me if it's an emergency and I won't look into it. Since that was only 1 week ago, and since this ordinance has come up, I think none of those things last week were emergencies, and they could have waited until this week to get cleared. We don't want to look like anything at all like the old council and how they made judgments on things. I agree that the recreational money is an issue. I'm glad to see that there's more policy on it, that it has to now be screened somewhat ahead. It's not the Finance Committee that's screening it. It's us all looking at those expenses. You know, we have seen in the past how one council member gave over $8,000 to an organization of which he was president of. He's no longer with us, thank you. That's wrong. It shouldn't be given to special interest groups that, again, you might be trying to influence. By and large, at least for 3 particular districts, I see, and I read this every time of who's gotten money, the money goes very equally distributed to a lot of organizations that need it, and that's good. But when you give chunks of $2,000, $3,000, unless it's something major, I think you can do a whole lot better to divide it up into $500 chunks. We've seen in the past how an organization got money 3 times for a roof, parking lot. You know, shouldn't be happening. The other thing I would like to see is on the administrator's report, I would like to see every time a animal shelter report. on how many animals have come in, euthanized, rescued. And that needs to be out for the public. You know, we've said we would like for it to be in the paper at least monthly, but I never see it posted anywhere. We have a brand-new shelter. I understand we've had some problems with electrical issues and lighting issues out there, $3 million facility. And hopefully now that those things are worked out and we have a new director, that things can be on the up and up about adoptions. But a building doesn't make a better shelter. It's the people who work to get the animals adopted. And also, I hope that you're going to push your money forward for the spay and neuter clinic so we can get that going. If you're not going to organize one specifically for Anderson, give Miss Wanda that money and let her go ahead and be fixing these animals. Thank you.
That's everyone, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts. Moving on, council member remarks, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're still struggling to do more with less. It is an effort. I did want to ask the status of the spay-neuter program. When we've got a $1.2 million budget for the animal shelter and we're still killing thousands of animals, that's really sad. But if we could get as many animals spayed and neutered, that's going to cut down on the animals coming in and cut down on the budget. We can do a lot more things humanely. Do we have any update since we passed this June 21st?
I think we didn't pass it to, goes in effect July, so, and it is being worked on. I know the administrators had several meetings trying to get something worked out. Hope the next council meeting we'll have something presented before council.
And I do hope that we can really scrutinize our expenses. It is frustrating, and I'm sure everybody's getting aggravated with this one way or the other. But we do need to put more money toward road work. And I would just enlist all of us to look at ways we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowder.
No comment, Chairman. Thank you.
Moore.
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Floyd.
Nothing to do.
Mr. Allen.
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Waters.
Got one thing. Noticed that we had an event over at Sadler's Creek with the jet skis. A lot of people from out of state. Had about 2,000 people show up, and I believe there were 8 animals that were adopted out at that event. So we're kind of taking advantage of the whole thing, you know, inviting these people into the state. And I had the opportunity to ride one of the jet skis, but I was going to be out of town, so I kind of missed that. I like playing with somebody else's toys. But anyway, just wanted to mention that to everyone, and it's all good. And thank you.
It's good. Want to appreciate all the council's hard work and citizens coming out tonight. One quick order of business. I'd like to, we brought up earlier tonight, the Finance Committee did about and the administrators asked us for some guidance on a driving log. I'd like to ask Mr. Allen if he'd chair up. He had the motor pool thing and started his car things. If him and Mr. Waters, Mr. Crowder would be on the ad hoc committee and try to report something back to us, full council, to look at on that right there to get something back with their experience. In fact, if there's no objection, we'll be adjourned.